Hello and welcome to another episode of The Wannabe Entrepreneur, the podcast about what it's really like to bootstrap a company. Today we are interviewing Marc, aka the Judo Hacker, which I will definitely be asking about this handle. It's really cool. Welcome, Marc. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me, Tiago.
No, it's definitely my pleasure, and I think all the wannabe entrepreneurs will learn a lot from your experience. We were just talking off record, and Marc told me that he's an entrepreneur for more than 11 years. So a seasoned entrepreneur, had a lot of failures and also some successes, which is the normal life of an entrepreneur. And today we will be mostly speaking about his journey and about his journey, particularly building a PowerImporter, a really cool tool that Marc will be describing to us, what it does and how it came to be. So super excited to speak about it. I think I first heard from you, Marc, from in my interview with Anthony from Indie Worldwide. He did mention you during the interview. I don't know if you heard it.
Oh, really? I didn't hear that episode.
Yeah, it was very brief, but I remember he mentioning your Judo Hacker, your handle.
Okay.
So yeah, welcome. Super excited to have a chat with you. And to kick things off, I would love to ask you to introduce yourself to the listeners. Who is Marc?
Sure. Well, as you said, I started my indie hacking journey like over 11 years ago. At first, I tried to do it while having a full-time job. I was a software engineer for many years. And it didn't work for me. Like I never had the energy to do it. And I made all the same mistakes everyone makes at the beginning. So nothing was getting traction. It's even more discouraging because you have no energy and no traction. So I decided to bite the bullet. I had enough savings to give myself like 2 years to start something. So I quit my job and I started building products.
Cool. It's like me. I have a similar
yeah, exactly.
Journey.
And so I was very lucky that the first product I created was successful. So then I was able to just concentrate on my lifestyle, which was my goal. Like I wanted to spend more time with my kids and my wife. So we were able to travel during the summer when they were not at school. And I would just indie hack while they were at school. And yeah, it was great. Then I tried building other things and almost all of them failed. But this most recent one is a success finally. And that's PowerImporter. So it's a NoCode data syncing tool for Webflow and Airtable. How I got the idea was that I had a friend that was trying to build a website on Webflow. And he was encountering all these problems, like how am I going to structure the data in Webflow, right? Like, because he wanted to have photos that were taken with different cameras and different lenses, so you could compare, and then it would all be affiliate revenue, like when you go and buy the camera, the lens. But he just couldn't figure out how to do the data structure. So I said, hey, you know what? I'll look at it and I'll build it for you, like just the CMS. And then I encountered like how hard it was to build the structure, but then actually put data in it and maintain it. So whenever photographers sent them new photos, like it was impossible to like import it or update it once it was already in. So then I wrote a script for him so that he could manage it all with a CSV file. And then I saw, well, he must not be the only one that has this problem. So I went on a NoCode Slack channel and I asked, like, would anybody else need this? And a bunch of people were like, hell yes, like totally need this. So I started talking to them. So scheduling calls. This was all like in the summer of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like from talking with them, I realized that most of them, they liked this idea of the CSV file, but their data was actually in Airtable. So like they were going to export it as CSV and then import it in Webflow. So then I thought, well, I'll just sync directly from Airtable to Webflow. and yeah, my from those conversations with those designers, like I was able to iterate quite a few times to make sure that the tool did exactly what they needed. And I encountered different use cases that I hadn't foreseen with my friend's project. So then I think after 2 months, I had something that I was pretty confident with, and I started charging for it. And yeah, it's been growing every month ever since.
So you said that you couldn't do both, and I totally understand what you mentioned, because for me it's the same. I either focus 100% in one or the other. It would be really hard to have my full-time job and then a side gig, and it's been really hard for me. Even though a lot of people tell me that that's what I should do, because of course that only focusing on your project, especially when they don't make money, as a big psychological toll.
Right.
Tell me more about this. Why couldn't you manage doing both?
Well, the job itself was demanding. Like, if you do the 40 hours at work, and
Yeah,
with commute, it was 50 hours. And I had 2 young kids at home. So, I get home, I got to help with the kids, spend time with them. So during weekdays, I couldn't really get anything done. So, but then
yeah,
on the weekends, like, my wife and kids wanted to do things like, let's
exactly.
go out and see friends or go to the park. Or so it was really hard to find some time when you can really do some deep work.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, like, I just didn't have the energy for it.
So why do you think people recommend this?
Well, I mean, if you don't have young kids, if you're like a single and young and you're full of energy, it makes sense. Like, because now you still have revenue from your job,
True,
and you
yeah.
can take your time with the side project.
I think that having a project, it becomes it's more than a full-time job, isn't it? To do a side project, because you end up working more than 40 hours, right? And I don't know
Yeah.
if you felt this when I switched from my job to my startup. The idea is to have a great lifestyle, but at least in the first years, is actually the opposite, right? You end up working more, getting paid less, you have more stress. So why did you decide to, or why did you want to follow this dream of becoming your own boss?
Well, with when I first started, it was a success though. I did have the lifestyle that I wanted. Like, I did not work that much. I had a working MVP in a month, and like I said, I had savings, so I gave myself like a 2-year runway.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't in a rush to monetize it, so I was able to let it grow organically for free. And then after a year, I put AdSense on it, so I started getting some ad revenue, and then I created a premium membership. So I added extra features to it that were only available to premium members,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's it. Then the revenue really extended my runway, and I didn't have to worry about the money.
Oh. But it's okay. You had some savings, and I also had some savings, and I think for anyone that wants to quit their job to focus 100% in their side projects, they need savings, right? I mean, they need to have a source of income or saving something, because it will take some time for them to be able to make a salary.
Yeah.
But wasn't it nerve wracking for you to know that you're also somehow cutting down on your savings, because you could have used them to invest into real estate or whatever, but instead you are investing in yourself.
I saw it exactly as you put it. It was, I was investing in myself. So I was like, if, let's say, a lot of people like quit their jobs and go back to school, right? And and if they're going to like an American school, like they're going to be getting huge debt to get this new degree,
Mm-hmm.
but they see it as they're investing in themselves, and eventually they'll make more money in the future, and it will pay off the debt, and they'll be better off. That's how I saw it. I said, listen, I'm willing to spend this much money on myself. I have 2 years. If I spend it all, and at the end of 2 years I don't have something that's bringing enough revenue to pay the bills,
Mm-hmm.
well, I'll just go back to working. Like, I I was a software engineer. It's pretty easy to find a job. So I was like, there's no stress. I'll find another job.
How did you tell this to the other people, to your wife, friends, family? Was it easy for them as well to comprehend that you were taking time for your own education, or quote unquote education, investing in yourself instead of collecting money?
Right. um, my wife was super supportive, so that was very easy. But yeah, friends and family was not so easy. Like it seems like when you do this, you're sort of like judging their lifestyle and their life decisions, right? It's like they're saying, "Well, what's wrong with having a good job?" And like, you think you're better than us? Like, what is this? So it was very hard, and especially since when I started having success, and I was like, I had designed the lifestyle that I wanted. Then people didn't like to see
Jealous.
that. Yeah, they didn't like to see that on Facebook and Instagram.
Really?
Yeah.
But how would they react? Would they, unfriend you or something?
No, no, but I'd get some like passive aggressive comments like, well, not everyone can do this. And
I never thought that would be the problem. Actually, for me, so I would be happy to succeed and have some haters. I think there's always haters, and that's kind of their problem. For me, the problem is mostly kind of the opposite: is not succeeding. Is like explaining to others and seeing the others working. I have a lot of friends that are also software engineers, and I believe that you must as well. And seeing them making a good salary, and then looking at my own, I don't even call it a salary, but my MRR, and thinking, okay, how do I even explain that I'm now spending so much time in something that is bringing so little money?
you have to reframe it. It's like, that's not what you're doing. You're investing this money in yourself to learn how to become an entrepreneur. Like, this is an education.
Mm-hmm. So this was never an issue for you, not having a job, not making money. For 2 years, you were living out of your savings, and you were able to still relax and not think too much about the monetary aspect of it.
Yeah. And I did, I mean, it is true that during those 2 years, I did take on 2 contracts. So freelancing contracts,
Mm-hmm.
but I wasn't looking for it. They really just fell on my lap. Like, a next coworker called me and said, "Hey, you're not working now. Can you help us out for a few months?" And that was really good money. So that extended the runway. And I was like, sure, I'll do it.
Mm.
And then another one landed on my lap that I wasn't looking for. And I said, sure, except there's a hard deadline. I have to end in June because then the kids are out of school and I'm leaving for the summer. So that helped. So, but even without that, like, before I got those, I was not worried. Like, because in my eyes, it was just 2 years. Like, it's like going back to school for 2 years. Future employers will. I was convinced like it would not be a problem. Like, with my work experience, taking 2 years to build something yourself, like, that's, that you learn so much when you're building something by yourself that I wouldn't want to work for an employer that doesn't see the value in that.
Right. But so when you go to school, for instance, there's kind of, people that took time to create a course for you, and they give you certain assurance that you'll be learning the right things, right? So in those 2 years, you know that you'll definitely accomplish something. But in this case, even if you consider that you're learning how to be an entrepreneur, I mean, you're learning by yourself. And there's many ways to be an entrepreneur. How do you even know that you're learning the right things?
Well, I mean, as a software engineer, like, the businesses that I'm starting are all software based. So, like, I'm building stuff. So it's all stuff that can go on my CV, right? Like, I built a site that had this much traffic, that had this many transactions, that was using this technology. Like, that's all. That all looks very good on a software engineer's resume.
So is this something that you do, kind of write down or update your resume as you went?
No, not at all. No, I consider myself unemployable now. Like I could never go back to a job.
Why?
Yeah, because I love the freedom. Like I've designed this lifestyle that I love, and I'm following my passions. And
Okay. Not because of the skills, more because you wouldn't fit there, right?
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
It's
But then that's also something that worries me a little bit. That is, imagine that after 2 years you wouldn't have made it, right? You wouldn't have enough money to live. You would need to go back to job, right? So
yes.
what would be the impact of that?
I don't think it would have been an impact. Well, at least I didn't believe so. So that's why I wasn't worried. I was very confident that I could find a job again. Even my previous employer that I left would have
Yeah.
gladly taken me back.
Right, but then you kind of would lose the freedom that you built, right? Like, would it be easy for you to readapt?
Yeah, no, exactly. That would have been hard.
Hmm.
But that was like the worst case scenario, right? Like you gotta take
Yeah.
bets, right? It's like, yeah, I play poker, so like sometimes the pot gets really big, and it's like,
Uh-huh.
oh, I'm willing to risk this much to make
Hmm.
it to a showdown because the pot is big enough to justify the risk.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was the same thing for this. It was like the if this is successful, like it's totally worth it. Worst case scenario, like I just get a job again. So, like I don't lose my house. I
Hmm.
don't. My wife's not going to divorce me. Like the
Yeah.
worst case scenario was not that bad.
Right. And would you consider it a failure?
No, it was a success.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the healthy mindset to have. I envy you for being able to have such a mindset, because for me it's really it's really hard to be so chill about it.
Really?
So yeah, really cool.
But I mean,
Um,
sorry. Like how old are you?
I'm at 29.
Okay, so you've been a software engineer for like
Six it was 6 years. Yeah.
okay 6 years. Yeah, I think you wouldn't have a hard time finding a job again.
No, yeah. I don't think that the finding a job would be hard. I think what troubles me the more is the other aspects, like going back to a job after tasting the freedom, and also this feeling of that I kind of failed a little bit. I think those were the main reasons. I also don't think that finding a job per se would be hard, but I'm afraid that I would be always thinking, okay, I failed, and now I'm paying the consequences of having it. I don't know. It's
Yeah,
some stuff goes through my mind.
sure, but no, I mean you would survive though, right? Yeah, you
Yeah,
might
definitely.
feel
Yeah.
awkward, you might feel ashamed, but then there's no reason why you couldn't work for 5-10 years and then try again later. Like,
True. Yeah. One other aspect of the entrepreneur life is that you, especially if you're a solo founder, you feel kind of alone, right? You are the only one taking the decisions, working. Um, how did you cope with that?
yeah, I mean, I'm very introverted, so
Okay.
it it
Lucky.
wasn't yeah, it wasn't a huge problem. Like for quite a few years, I was very content that yeah, I mean, I have friends outside of work, so
Hmm.
so I could still see those friends, and so I was getting enough socializing. But I have to admit, though, like maybe after 3 years, 4 years, then I started feeling a bit lonely. There's
Hmm.
no one that I can talk to about these problems that I encounter as an indie
Yeah.
hacker, right? Like dealing with customer support or dealing with scaling or dealing with marketing. Like nobody understood.
How did you fix that?
That's a good question. I still feel lonely sometimes. But in the past few years it's been so much better. Like since COVID, now like a lot of communities are online.
Yeah.
So like yeah, there's Indie Worldwide and on
WB
Twitter.
space.
Yeah. Exactly. It's a great place. Check it out.
So is that enough for you? Virtual friends?
Yeah, I think it is because I have plenty of in real life
Right.
friends, right? Like I do judo, which is why My handle is Judo
Ah,
Hacker.
yes. Finally.
Yeah. So
Really? It's because you do judo.
exactly. So that is a great sense of community
Right.
in that dojo. So I have all those friends. I play poker, so there's a lot of friends through poker.
So
And
it's
then
important to have other hobbies that you don't want to monetize, right? Well,
yeah,
poker you kind of want to monetize, but
but that's it. I mean, those are the passions I was talking about. Like, what do you want to do? Like when you're not working, right? Like
Mhm.
it's not when you have this freedom. Like, I can do judo in the middle of the day. And
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's really important to somehow keep hobbies that are outside of the entrepreneurial world, and that would help you, because otherwise it might feel that your project is kind of your whole life, and it's connected with you, right? So one thing that is, I think it's really important to distinguish is the project and yourself, right? So quite often I feel that if my project fails, I fail personally,
right.
but that's completely wrong.
Yeah, that is hard. And I have to admit, at the beginning of my journey, I did not build in public, and that was one
Mm.
of the reasons why. Like I was, you know what? I'd rather fail privately.
Yeah.
And then I had this idea that I just wanted these products that made passive revenue, and I would just live my lifestyle and not have to be in the public eye.
Right. Right.
But the problem with that is that it's very lonely.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why now I build in public, and I've made some really good online friends through it.
And it's also a great way to do marketing, which is
Yeah.
really hard for us bootstrappers. And if you get to somehow share your journey, you also end up building an audience.
Yeah. I mean, building in public is like the perfect way to market as an engineer.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's perfect. You just have to, people just want to like ride along and see what you're doing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, well, how did he build this online community,
Yeah.
and how did he build this Slack bot? Like, people are really, they're just curious.
Yeah.
They, like people watch reality TV for the same reason. Like you just want
True.
to chill and watch other people like deal with problems.
So how do you build in public? What are your techniques? What is it? Do you only use Twitter for that?
Yeah, it's mostly Twitter. Like I sometimes will post in like Indie Hackers or these different Slack channels that I'm part of, if it's relevant. Like if I think some people there might find it interesting what I'm building or
Mm-hmm.
what the problem that I'm facing. But it's mostly Twitter.
Right. And what kind of content do you share? Do you share your problems? Do you share things more technical, like I'm having this bug and I cannot fix it, or are more business related
Yeah,
tweets?
it's I definitely don't do like the threads, the thought threads, or like it's mostly like just showing you what I'm working on right now. So like, hey, I added my email address to the footer of the website.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm getting more customer feedback, which is a good thing and a bad thing because I'm trying to get work done.
Yeah.
And or I'm trying to build this new importer for PowerImporter. Does anybody else? Would anybody else need this? But it's mostly like tweeting about the decision making before you build the thing, tweeting
Mm-hmm.
while you're building it, any problems that you're encountering, and then tweeting when it's done, and maybe a follow up tweet later, like with the outcome. Like if it was an experiment, what's your insight? What the results of that experiment?
I'm just checking here one of your tweets. It says, "I fucking hate DNS." And then afterwards you say, "Note to self: for your next SaaS separated www and app subdomains on day one." So
Exactly.
that's a perfect example here of
Yeah, and that's
you
it. And I
just
was quoting my own tweet from before where I was
true,
explaining,
yeah,
right, that
yeah.
I'm switching over the
Yeah.
marketing site to its own domain. And
Are you happy with your growth on Twitter?
yeah, I mean, in when I started PowerImporter, so in 2020, I had like 100 followers,
Hmm.
and I never
Okay.
used Twitter. Like I had created Twitter like in 2008 or 2009, like
Yeah.
so long ago, but I never used it. So I'd say from November 2020, is that it? Yeah.
Hmm.
From November 2020 to now, like I've increased it
Really?
tenfold. Yeah.
That's crazy. And just by sharing your content, your tweets, or do you also like interact with others quite often? Like,
Yeah. I reply a lot to other people's tweets,
mhm.
like just to start conversations. I mean, the way I see Twitter has really changed in the past week, especially since I've had an interview. Like we had a guest on our podcast.
Erin, right?
Yeah, that's right. And he's really changed my attitude about it.
How
So
so?
it's not so much about like trying to get followers. I've decided my goal is to make friends on Twitter.
Hmm.
Like that's my goal because it's pretty lonely being an indie hacker. So I
Right.
just want to be around other people that are building in public and cheer them on. And I figured the followers will come automatically.
Hmm.
But mostly like signups for PowerImporter have gone up dramatically. So because in my bio, like the first link is to PowerImporter.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, just people like whenever you tweet or reply or they go check out your profile and they see a link in your bio, like, I'm currently building this in public. They click the link and they go check it out.
Yeah. And I think that's a good bridge here for PowerImporter. So let's start with the basics. Webflow. It's a no-code tool, right? Is it like a bubble?
No, well, it's a visual website builder.
Hmm.
It abstracts the HTML and the CSS, so you don't have to know any HTML and CSS. But basically, everything you can do in CSS, you can do with Webflow. Like it has controls for all of it. So you want to add margins, you just click on the margins and increase them. You want to add padding, change the color, change the font. So it's really popular with designers. Like
some kind of WordPress somehow, is it?
Yeah, sort of. But it's really about designing websites. Like it's mostly designers are using it. So design agencies and freelancers. Because before designers would design in Figma or Photoshop, and then you'd have a developer take that design and try to reproduce it pixel perfect in HTML and CSS.
Exactly.
Well, like Webflow skips that step. It allows the designer to design in Webflow and generate the HTML and CSS.
Okay, got it.
And then they have a CMS, so you can store data. You can create a database, a data structure, and put data in it, and then design a template for each table. Right. So let's say you're creating a job board. You could have a job, and you'll have a template for displaying each job. So you get to design it, and it will just drop the data directly in the template as you're designing it.
Sounds like a perfect tool for
it does, exactly.
no coders, right?
But then the problem is, let's say you're building something that's data driven, so like a job board. How are you going to manage your jobs? Like, how are people going to submit new jobs? How are you going to sort the jobs? Or like, let's say you want to approve jobs before they appear on the site. That's where Webflow CMS comes short. So,
right.
So a lot of people want to use Airtable as their backend. And if you're not familiar with Airtable, it's like a Google Sheet, except it's a lot more structured, like a database.
Yeah.
So you can have types for each column. So this column only has images, and it allows you to like upload the images directly into that field.
Yeah. No, I've played a little bit with the Airtable, and I've made some integrations with Zapier, but I'm still kind of a noob. And I've heard about Webflow as well in one of the interviews I had here with a NoCode developer.
Okay.
But yeah, definitely now I know a little bit more in detail. We just like covered it very generically in our interview. So
yeah, and that's it. And the problem is that right now people have to use Zapier to try to keep their Airtable and their Webflow CMS in sync, and that is a nightmare. Like it's error prone, it's complicated.
Right.
If there's just one error, like one zap that fails, like all of a sudden you're out of sync and there's no way to like start all over because Zapier is really event driven.
Right.
So once the event has occurred, like there's no way to like redo it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why PowerImporter is so popular. It's because it does all that logic of like making sure that the two stay in sync. And if they when they go out of sync, it's able to detect the difference and
Right.
update them accordingly.
So taking the example of the job board, right? So I want to submit my job. I sign a form. This form is made through Webflow or Airtable.
Well, I'd say the simplest way would be to use an Airtable form because that allows you to not have to do any Zapier integrations.
So we use the Airtable form, and then a PowerImporter makes sure that this data that is now in Airtable is updated with the Webflow website.
Exactly. So that's
Got
it.
it.
So it makes sure that it appears in the Webflow site. And, in Airtable, you can create these views and different views can filter out things. So you could have where someone submits a form in Airtable, it needs to be approved by an admin before it appears on Webflow. So then you could create a view that filters on a checkbox field. Like, it needs to be checked in order to appear in this view.
Right.
And PowerImporter will only sync it if it appears in the view. So it allows you to have like an approval process.
So let's go through the evolution of PowerImporter. So you already told us a little bit about the story. You had a friend that had a problem. You solved it, creating PowerImporter or creating a script basically that he could use that would manage the CSVs and convert them to the Webflow. Then you kind of realize that this might be a problem that someone else might want it to be fixed. Was this something that someone alerted to, that maybe this is a great tool and some others would be able to use it? Or because this is already a kind of an entrepreneur mindset, which is building something and thinking, okay, how can I sell it? Is this something that you go and you do this often with your projects, thinking, okay, I built this, who would be interested?
Yeah. I mean, I have my own set of criteria for what makes a good startup idea for myself.
Okay.
So I'm looking for something that's demand driven. So customers are actively searching for a solution. So I don't want to invent something like brand new, like robot vacuum, right?
Right.
When you create a robot vacuum, the first company that did, nobody was looking for robot vacuums. Even though it's a great invention, no one's looking for it. So you have to create this demand. You have to create these marketing campaigns, PR, to show the world, hey, robot vacuums exist and this is why they're cool. So I don't want to do that. I don't want to create demand. I want to find something where people are actually searching for a solution. So in this case, for PowerImporter, people are searching for, how do I sync a rich text field from Airtable to Webflow?
How do you know if there's a demand for it?
Yeah, I mean, you could use the keyword. You do keyword research. Look on Stack Overflow, look on in forums to see if people are asking these questions.
Right.
So that's one way of doing it. I quickly saw in Webflow forums that there were a lot of these problems. Like people are constantly asking these questions. How do I do it with Zapier? How do I do it with Integromat? And and in that case, it's very easy after that for me to just show up on the forum and say, well, this is how you could do it. Or you could try PowerImporter that just does it all for you.
Right.
And that's how I got all my first paying customers.
So that was your first marketing strategy. You just offered two solutions. One, the solution without PowerImporter, and the other one, the solution with PowerImporter, and most of them would just select yours, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then if later on, when someone searches the forum to find that answer, like they see my answer, and then it's like, well, I'm going to try out this PowerImporter thing.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's my
Yeah,
first criteria. Like it needs to be demand driven.
right. And it's hard. It's hard to find demand driven products because nowadays it seems that there's a solution for everything, right? Uh,
I don't know. I keep seeing like problems all the time, like that don't have a good solution yet.
right, right. But for people searching for it, because one thing is to find a problem, another thing is to find a problem that enough people are searching for a solution that will make it a business, right?
Right.
Do you see a lot of those?
Yeah. I mean, I'm in all these no code communities now, and I see it all the time.
Right.
Like the same
It's a new
problem.
market too, right?
Yeah. No, exactly. And there's not a lot of tools out there yet. Right. Like there's starting to be more
Mm,
and more tools, but this kind of data syncing tool, like there's not many out there, and I'm starting to branch out into all the other no code tools. Like right now, it's mostly Webflow and Airtable, but like I'm working on a Notion one, so soon you'll be able to sync Notion to Airtable or Webflow.
mm,
So I'm solving the same problem, but for all these
yeah.
different niches, which
That's
is
very smart. That's very
yeah, which
smart.
is my other criteria when I trying to find a startup
Yeah,
idea
go
is
for it.
that it needs to be niche because
Okay.
then you can easily target those keywords. There's no competition. And if it's really
Mm,
niche, you can really tailor your landing pages for that audience. So when they land
right.
on the page, it's like it just talks to them, right? Like you're a
Mm,
Webflow designer and it's showing you how to solve this problem for Webflow designers.
mm, that makes total sense. What is the next criteria?
The best one is B2B. Because I've done a lot of B2C and it's
Yeah, yeah,
so hard. It
yeah.
is so hard. People are cheap, they don't want to pay. They will
Definitely.
always
Yeah.
prefer a free alternative.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, for me, I think it's B2C, it's always more sexier. You always feel that you can change the world, and if you think about it, a lot of tools that are making tons of money, they are B2C, right? Uber or Airbnb, Facebook, whatever.
Yeah.
And we all, most of us, especially in the beginning, we have B2C ideas. But I'm always thinking that, and that's what I'm trying to do with indie offices. Man, I wish I had a B2B idea because they just have more money. So is it really easier to make a B2B in
Yeah,
comparison to a B2C?
absolutely. Yeah. I'm never going back to B2C. No, like people that are looking for a solution to solve their problem in a niche, and they're willing to pay to fix it because they're a business. Like
Right.
they're either a design agency or they're a freelancer. Like they're willing to pay, and they are already paying for Zapier to solve the
Hmm.
problem. So in this case, it's such an easy sell. It's
Right.
like, here, this is
But there's
easier than
probably a lot
Zapier.
of there's probably a lot of bootstrappers also using this tool, no?
Yes,
Uh,
there are. Yeah, there are a lot of founders, like no
yeah.
code founders, that are using this.
Hmm.
Like they're the ones that are building job boards and
Right.
marketplaces.
So, are there any more criteria? I think this is really interesting. So far we covered demand, niche, and B2B.
Yeah, and then for me, it's about like a founder product fit,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? So like I know I'm like I said, I'm introverted, so I do not want to start a business that is sales driven.
Mm.
Like I can't do sales, and I that sounds like a nightmare to like have to call people or cold DM people and try to sell them on your product. So I'm looking more for like product driven. So like where the product sells itself. Like people can once they've discovered the product, they're able to try it out themselves and they're able to make the decision themselves. Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to buy this.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's definitely
But I
yeah.
mean, this is somehow a byproduct of the first three, isn't it? If you have demand, enough demand in the niche, the product will sell itself if it's good enough, right?
Yeah, but it depends. So if like let's say you were selling something for enterprise, then
Mhm.
you have to do sales. Like the enterprise, they want more hand holding. There's more decision makers in the organization that you have to convince to use it.
Mm-hmm.
So you might have to do sales calls, technical demos.
Right.
Okay, like it's not a given that like it will always be product driven,
Mm-hmm.
but that's my criteria though. For me, it has to be product driven.
You built these products for your friends. Then you did some kind of market research. You saw that there were a lot of people looking for it. Your next step, I guess, was to make this script production ready so that you could be
Yeah.
shared. And what did you focus there? Like, what was your minimal viable features?
I mean, when it was really to because at first it was a private beta, so I was talking to people before I was letting them in, and it just not a sales call, right? Like I already knew they were interested. That, I know they have the problem, they want to solve it, but I just want to find out what their data looks like, because that was the biggest problem. Is like I have no idea what they're trying to sync.
Right.
Like I didn't know they were trying to build job boards or like a blog or a piece. So like by talking with them, I'm getting an idea of what their data is, and then I can actually see their data. And then I was just building for them. Like, all right, so this will work for a job board. And then they would build, and then they come back to me. Oh, I'm missing this field. I need to be able to sync this type of field. All right, so I add it. And until the problem was solved, all right, now move on to the next customer.
Right. So in the beginning, were they already paying?
Not during the private beta. So for like for 2-3 months, it was free, and I was just kept updating it.
How did you kept in touch with the first customers? Did you create like a Slack channel or something?
No, I did not do a Slack channel. I'm not a fan of Slack, but also like my lifestyle, like I don't want to be on call all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel Slack like you have to be responsive, like you have to respond quickly.
Yeah. So
I
was it email?
I much prefer email. Yeah, email is what I prefer.
Mm-hmm. Was it easy to collect feedback from these first users? Were they very engaging in telling what was missing?
It was very easy. Like I would do video calls with them, and have them share their screen while they're using the tool, and it was very easy. Like they were very enthusiastic. Like this was a hair on fire problem that it was.
Yeah. When did you notice that you have hit the nail there? That you realize that, okay, this is something that might make some nice money and a good business?
Well, all along it felt easy, and that, like, considering all the failures I've had, like where you feel like it's hard, you have to convince people, you have to you convince yourself, it's because there's missing features, that's why they're not interested. Like I've felt that so many times before, like, but here it was easy. It was yes, I'll jump on a call with you, yes, I'll share my screen, yes, I'll give you the API keys to my Webflow and my Airtable. Like, like they were just yes all the time. And then after the private beta, when I was confident that I had something that was working for many use cases, then I just did the Stripe integration and started charging right away, and people were just signing up and paying for it.
How did you advertise the product once it was out of the private beta?
I just continued to do what I was doing, which was hanging out in the forums and answering people's questions.
So, and which forums were there? You said a Stack Overflow?
Well,
what else?
Mostly Webflow's forum. So Webflow has a very active forum, and that's where all the designers hang out, and that's where they express their problems. Like, hey, I'm trying to do this, or I'm trying to build that, and so it's always easy to answer that question with and to plug PowerImporter at the same time without sounding like a spammer.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was about to ask. Because it feels that there's a couple of people asking on how to connect Airtable with the Webflow, but at some point you just answered all of them, right? Or were there always questions coming up every day?
Well, no, there's not that many every day. So I check every day, but if it's not every day that I find something that I can answer. But by now, like I've probably answered like over 200 questions. So the
Mm.
Power Importer is all over the forums now. Like, and like, and traffic just keeps coming from the forums.
So that's your main source of traffic, the forums,
Yeah,
or is SEO as well a good
yeah,
source?
SEO, Twitter, and the forums. Like that's
Okay.
pretty much all my traffic.
Uh-huh. Have you tried indie hackers?
Yeah, I've posted a few times in AD Hackers. I got a bit of traffic, but I think
Mm.
almost no one signed up.
Okay. Okay.
And I've also been on Reddit a few times,
Right.
and it's the same thing. It's like people don't. I don't know. They don't. They're not. I guess they're not looking for a solution.
Yeah. Exactly. After the private beta, you started having customers immediately.
Yeah.
How many? How was the growth?
Oh, it was great. It was like doubling every month,
Wow.
and now like not it doesn't double every month obviously, but
Yeah.
it's still growing every month. So I've definitely, I would say I found product market fit.
Mm.
Like the fact that it just grows easily.
And your prices are also not too crazy, right? So you have a free tier, and then you have a business tier and an agency, and the business tier is $25 per month.
Yeah,
So how did you come up with the pricing?
yeah, that's a it's so hard. And I'm actually reevaluating everything now. I think I'm going to be increasing my prices,
Mm-hmm.
but I wanted the price. I thought I thought the price needed to be cheaper than the Webflow hosting costs,
Mm-hmm.
and it needed to be cheaper than building it yourself in Zapier. So
Right.
that's how I came with like the 25 a month. That's if you pay yearly. If you pay monthly, it's 29.
Okay.
So, but I think the fact that no one has ever told me it's too expensive, and people are converting on their own, like I don't have to do sales or anything. I think I should increase the prices.
Yeah, I actually have no idea how to come up with prices. I was doing the same also for indie offices and even for the community. Um, because one thing that I don't remember now who told me this, but we should always make the price based on the value it's creating and not how much it took us to build it, right? So, uh,
Absolutely, yeah.
but it's always a very very hard.
Oh, I
Yeah,
mean, it's pure guesswork. Like I'm
yeah,
sorry if someone says that there's a science to it. Like I don't think there
yeah,
is. I think it's you look at around what the alternatives are, like so you get an idea of what I knew how much my customers were paying on Webflow, how much they were
right,
spending on Airtable, how much they were spending on Zapier. So it's like I get an idea like they can
true,
pay
yeah,
this much.
yeah,
But now I'm realizing that this psychological limit I had set for myself, that they wouldn't want to pay more than they pay for Webflow,
mm-hmm.
that was a mistake. Like, because I think really I'm an alternative to Zapier. I'm not. It shouldn't matter how much they spend on Webflow,
Right, right, yeah,
and
yeah,
Zapier
yeah.
is so expensive. Like they're gonna spend hundreds of dollars on Zapier if they want to
Mm-hmm,
do the
mm-hmm.
equivalent of what Power Importer does.
Makes total sense. Do you have any goals? Like what are your goals for 2022 in regards to Power Importer?
I I I want to create more importers. So like right now
Mm.
it's mostly Airtable to Webflow and CSV to Webflow.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to create a bunch of other ones. So Notion and WordPress, Substack. I mean, because I'm in the community, I'm seeing all these other demands show up.
Right, right. Mm-hmm. What about in the business wise? Like how many? I can see here that you have like Subway, Tefal, Microbrave. All of these are your customers already, right?
Yeah,
It's amazing.
yeah. I mean, I was surprised like that. It was a designer that was designing this site for Subway.
Oh, wow.
Like
Okay.
you'd be surprised. Like a lot of these big corporations, they
Mm-hmm.
have more than one website. right? They have like so many different websites.
Yeah.
So they'll have a website for recruiting, a website for human resources.
And they have multiple different teams working on it.
That's
Or,
right. Yeah. So
yeah, interesting.
they'll hire an agency for one project, or they'll do another one internally.
How much are you making actually? Is that something you can share, or
No, actually, I
round
don't
numbers?
share numbers. Like I know like a lot of people share numbers when they're building in public. It's not about the money for me. Like for
Right.
some people it's about the money. It's really about the hustle, and I want to make my numbers grow. And for me it's about lifestyle. So the only thing I
Well,
care about is am I living the lifestyle I want?
right.
You know, is it paying for that lifestyle? Yes. Well, then for me it's successful, and it's
But then it's about the money, right? Because a lifestyle has a cost connected to it.
well, yeah, I mean, of course you're right. Like I need money, right? So like everything in life costs money, but some people it's actually about the money. You know, it's about
Right.
the exit that they're gonna do. You know, because they're planning on selling the business. It's all about the money. Or some people just love finding these opportunities of using arbitrage to make money. Like for them, it's all about the money. Like it's like a game. It's like I want to.
Right. Yeah.
Whenever they find an opportunity to make money, they like get excited about it. Me, I get excited about building, like, and that's part of the lifestyle, like that I want. I just want to build stuff,
Right.
like every day, like until I'm in my 80s and 90s. Like, so the as long as there's enough money to pay the bills for me to do that, then that's all I care about.
So is it already somehow close to the salary you're making as a software engineer?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, all my expenses are paid for. So
I mean, that's already great for me, and that's I quite often ask about the money, but I also don't have this mindset that I want to be a billionaire or whatever. I just want to cover my expenses, and yeah. So I think more than covering your expenses, yeah, to support the lifestyle that you want, and I think it's really important. So how automated is PowerImporter at the moment? Like, can you take vacation? Can you take sick days? Or do you always need to have one eye in the dashboard?
I mean, the only thing that's not automated is customer support. So sometimes there will be like customers will have problems, and I need to walk them through it. But I'm able to do that even if I'm camping, or like, you know, I just bring my cell phone and my laptop with me.
Right. So you need always to bring that. It's not, you cannot fully disconnect, can you?
No, exactly. Like I always need to be able to check once a day, like for customer support emails.
So is that okay in the lifestyle you want to create, or do you aim towards having the possibility to also fully disconnect?
Yeah, for now it's fine. Like I like it because every opportunity like that to talk to a customer is valuable. Like it, you know, it shows me that I'm creating value, that I'm solving their problems. Like, you know, they're all super grateful when I'm helping them. So that, and it's part of the fuel that drives me.
Right.
Yeah, but I definitely, yeah, as the company grows, the support is going to grow. So at one point I will have to start outsourcing that.
Right.
And then it would be nice to be able to really disconnect and not
But
have
then
to
you'll
check it
have
all.
to start managing people.
Yeah, exactly. That's another problem.
Is it something that worries you?
I've never done it before. Like I've never outsourced anything, so it would be hard. I have a hard time letting go.
What keeps you up at night? What are the problems that take your sleep?
Nothing. I sleep super well. I sleep super well, but when I wake up in the morning, like I'm like wide awake and I'm ready to start the
Super
day.
motivated.
Yeah, like the second that I'm awake, I don't try to fall back asleep. It's like I get up, go make some coffee, and
so you have no
get back to
worries.
work.
There's no worries with your product. Nothing that says, okay, I should do this or nothing.
No, I mean, yeah, there's definitely like I feel like there's so much I want to do and I'm not getting it all done. Like that's my worries. And of course I'm worried
For
like,
Power
well,
Importer.
yeah, for Power Importer. And I have all these other ideas for other products outside of Power Importer. So
Mm.
I do feel like, oh my God, there's so much I wanted to get done and I'm not getting it done.
Do you feel that now with your next products you'll be able um, to find the success because you found it once, you can find it again, or it's not like that?
I mean, I think so for the other ideas that I have, like I think it will be as easy as Power Importer because it has that same recipe.
Hmm.
It's like demand driven, it's in a niche, it's B2B.
Right, right, right. Have you tried anything else after Power Importer? I mean, I see here, for instance, Member Row, that you said that it's not as successful as you
Yeah, I
thought.
mean, Membero, I never actually launched it to any customers yet. So like I
Hmm.
built a prototype, I talked to a lot of customers. So there's definitely like there's interest for it. But then I had to put it aside to work on Power Importer. There's like
Mm-hmm.
too many things that were nagging me about Power
Yeah.
Importer that needed to be finished. So I had to put it on hold. Like, but
Yeah.
I'm still getting leads like that are coming in to the early adopt, like the
Mm-hmm.
early access. So I know that there's still demand for it.
Yeah. So since Power Importer, there's nothing else that you have built and you're trying to maintain
No,
at the moment.
no.
Okay.
And before
Mhm.
Power Importer, there was plenty, but we should probably keep that for another
Yes.
episode.
Yes.
There's lots of failures and
Yeah. Before Power Importer, did you add this formula to have a to to build a product?
sort of like my very first one. It was demand driven. It was in a niche, but it was B2C.
Right.
So that was the biggest problem.
Uh-huh.
Like it was a success. Like it allowed me to live the lifestyle I wanted to live, but it was much slower growth
Mm-hmm.
and higher churn, and it was not easy.
Okay. Yeah, Mark, thank you so much for the time and for sharing a little bit of your journey. There's a lot of things that I've learned from you here, and I think this little formula is definitely the key learning of this chat. I think it's really really
Right.
important.
Well, I
Uh,
hope so. I hope it helps other people.
exactly. Mark, I will link your Twitter profile and Power Importer in the show notes. You also have a podcast.
Yeah,
Do you
that's
want to
right.
quickly speak about it as well?
Yeah, I mean that's it. It's me and another founder, another indie hacker. So he's trying to find his very first product idea.
Okay.
So it's just a weekly podcast where we talk about our progress, like so what I'm working on, what experiments I'm testing out, and the results. And same thing with him. Like so we try to dig in. Like he's trying to find the problem, the solution, the
Mm-hmm.
market. So yeah, it's a great way if you just want to ride along. Hear two founders
Mm-hmm.
working in public. It's called
Startup do
Startup to
something.
Something. That's right,
Yeah.
Startup to Something. And yeah, and
Uh,
otherwise, my DMs are open on Twitter. So if anybody has questions or they want to brainstorm some ideas, like
learn
I'm
judo.
always, yeah, exactly. I'm always open for talking with people. I love it.
It's funny that you really have the personality of a judo athlete. You know, super chilled, super calm, always.
Like seriously, I could write a book about how judo has made me a better entrepreneur.
I think this would be a really cool book. I think you
Yeah,
should definitely at least write some tweets about it. I think that would be super cool. I would love to see
right.
it.
Some tweet threads.
Yeah, tweet threads. All right, Mark. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. It was lots of fun.
And for the listeners now, if you want to hear other interviews with other bootstrappers, entrepreneurs, you can go to wannabe-entrepreneur.com and there's many interviews for you. I'm sure you'll learn a lot. And if you are feeling lonely or you want to meet other like-minded people, get support from other bootstrappers and entrepreneurs, you can join our WBE space, a virtual co-working space for bootstrappers. And if you do, you'll be also supporting this podcast. I'm looking forward to see you there. And this was another Wannabe Entrepreneur. See you next time.